In this hilarious adventure, Oscar decides to figure out someone named Blake, and after a day of hard work, he finds 472 people named Blake. Finding these Blakes was tough, Oscar thought. Give up. I don't want a Little Red Riding Hood tragedy. This may relate to his dad's adventurous spirit. Every trip felt like a long bus ride. Oscar meticulously sorted this information, treating it like his Blake and Julian documentation, labeling addresses and phone numbers. His map looked like a work of art. He was convinced he'd find the stunning match for key lock. The next morning, Oscar packed his bags, equipped with a superhero gas mask his grandma had given him and his dad. He also stuffed the history of time into his bag, along with his stay-calm handbook. And so, Oscar set off on the extraordinary adventure his dad had left him. Since childhood, Oscar had Asperger's, his fear of the world like a balloon set to pop. Whether the old man drinking coffee, the sprinting lady, the overhead airplanes, or the towering skyscrapers, all made Oscar feel like walking on a tightrope. He reached a big bridge, and the howling wind combined with the screeching tires sent him into freeze mode. He couldn't help but remember his dad from years ago, always taking him to the park to swing, even though Oscar would always politely decline with an excuse of escaping my laziness. Being the brave little guy he was, Oscar chose to stop retreating. He picked up the com drum and started shaking it. He shook the drum all the way, chanting, not afraid, be brave." Yeah, I think he was trying out for a beauty pageant. Finally, Oscar has arrived at his first target. The name of the lady is Abby Blake. He timidly rang the doorbell, and a black lady answered, but poor thing had no time for Oscar as she was caught in an emotional storm. Oscar emphasized he was thirsty like a camel in the desert, and the kind lady finally let him in, only to find she was completely clueless about his dad and the key. Meanwhile, her husband was hurriedly packing up to leave. The lady was in tears, and Oscar suggested taking a photo for keepsake. Unexpectedly, as he pressed the shutter, she covered her face out of sadness, leaving behind a special black and white moment. Back home, Oscar hid in the bathroom, closely examining the unusual photo, only to be triggered back into his anxiety by his mom's calling. Late at night, he listened to his dad's final message alone, drowning in guilt as if his heart shattered into a million pieces. On the morning of September 11, 2001, at 9:58 am, Oscar thought this was the darkest day of her life, as though witnessing a live horror movie. The Twin Towers of the World Trade Center were hit, and Oscar got out of school early, listening to her father's message on the phone. In the message, her dad said be at ease, he'd be safe, but his voice stopped when the towers fell. The sorrowful Oscar had no alternative but to hide under the bed. When the panicking mom returned home, Oscar didn't spill his dad's messages. He was doing a great job keeping secrets. His mom kept trying to call his dad's phone, but it was perpetually busy, a real date with the devil. That night, with everyone asleep, Oscar dashed out to buy a new communication gadget from the store. This device appeared unaffected, recording all his dad's messages, an eternal memory in Oscar's heart. For Oscar, her dad was her superhero, often encouraging her amid her troubling thoughts. He hoped she'd finished the adventure game he crafted for her, though she sometimes struggled with the rules. She thought adventures would stop after her dad died, but found a note in the closet. Keep looking. Don't stop. Just as Oscar was about to retrieve the camera, she accidentally knocked over a vase, revealing a mysterious key inside. It was like the start of a treasure hunt. With each exploration, Oscar felt close to her dad, yet her relationship with her mom felt as distant as a mirage. Sometimes, their normal conversations felt as strange as alien communication, a truly heart-wrenching situation. In the following time, Oscar continued her search for Blakes. Some were as warm as summer, while others were as cold as ice. Most tried to comfort her, telling her not to be so sad. Oscar even made up a formula, like she was back in math class. Gradually, each Blake she met made things quirkier, and her photo collection grew. She got closer to that mysterious lock. It kept her actions from her mom, thinking friends wouldn't help here. Now all she wanted was that lock, but at her current visitation speed, it seemed like a 3-year wait. Oscar's emotions were getting wild. She hid in the closet every night listening to her dad's messages, until one night she could take it no more and unexpectedly woke her mom. "You promised not to leave me." Oscar's voice showed urgency, like in a mystery game. "You won't die." She kept expressing her hopes, as if setting the rules for this family game. Oscar had been haunted by her dad's funeral, as his body was never found, leaving her heartbroken. The family could only bury an empty coffin for him. She felt deeply puzzled why they would do that. What she couldn't accept was that ever since her dad's death, her mom spent half her time in a sleepwalk mode. Oscar felt she was totally unqualified, and after failed communication, he started venting. She lashed out cruelly at her mum, even wishing it had been just her on that fateful day in the tower. Truth was, her mum had received a call from her dad that day, anxiously reminding him to find a safe exit, but he could only follow the firefighters' orders, feeling utterly helpless. Meanwhile, the WTC lay in ruins, and after a quarrel with her mum, Oscar hid angrily in the closet. Meanwhile, her mum sat at the bedside, crying non-stop, until a moment later, Oscar picked up the intercom trying to reach Grandma across the way, but all she got was silence. The lights in the room flickered, leading her to suspect Grandma's house had a thief, prompting her to rush over. When she opened the door, she saw an unfamiliar old man who couldn't speak and communicated by writing. He was Grandma's new tenant.